First Contact and the Silent Threat. The quantum array hidden beneath the Atacama Desert captured the message on an ordinary Tuesday. Dr. Sarah Chen sat bolt upright in her chair as the transmission patterns crystallized on her holographic display. After 15 years of scanning the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, the array had finally caught something that couldn't be explained away as stellar noise or equipment malfunction. The message was simple, too simple to be natural. Prime numbers, repeating in a clear sequence. But what made Sarah's hands shake as she initiated the emergency protocol wasn't the mathematical precision of the signal. It was the overwhelming sense of desperation encoded in its rhythm. "This is New Santiago Control. We have a Category 1 event," she announced, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Within minutes, the facility transformed from a quiet research station into a hive of activity. Governments worldwide had practiced for this moment since the array's construction, but no one truly expected first contact to come as a warning. The message, once decoded, was brief. They consume minds. 32 systems fallen. Cannot resist. Terra system next. Beware the silence. Admiral James Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Council 3 days later, his dark eyes scanning the assembled representatives of humanity's nations. The chamber, housed in the rebuilt United Nations complex in New York, had never been so full. "The entity approaching our system calls itself the Void Collective," Rodriguez began, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "From what we've pieced together from subsequent transmissions, it's a parasitic hive mind that absorbs the consciousness of entire species. It doesn't destroy worlds, it converts them." Holographic displays showed the progression of the Void Collective's advance through nearby star systems. Each infected world appeared as a dark sphere, pulsing with an unsettling purple light. The pattern was clear. They were methodically working their way toward Earth. The species that sent us the warning, the Araxians, fought them for 3 years before falling. Rodriguez continued. "Conventional weapons were useless because the Void Collective doesn't rely on traditional military conquest. They infiltrate through psychic channels, turning population centers into extension nodes of their consciousness. Once a critical mass is reached, the entire species falls within days. What defense do we have against such an enemy?" The Chinese representative's question hung heavy in the air. Rodriguez's expression shifted, showing the first hint of hope. "That's where it gets interesting. Our xenobiology team made a discovery when analyzing the Araxian data. Human brains appear to have a unique characteristic. Our neural patterns are naturally resistant to external psychic manipulation." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Dr. Chen stepped forward, taking her place beside Rodriguez. "We believe it's because of our evolutionary path," she explained. "Unlike most sentient species we've learned about, humans developed in an environment that required constant adaptation to new threats. Our minds evolved to be highly individualistic, with natural barriers against external influence. We're not immune, but we're far more resistant than any species the Void Collective has encountered. How do we weaponize this advantage?" The Russian representative leaned forward, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Rodriguez activated another hologram, this one showing the schematics for a massive vessel. "This is Project Bastion. We've been developing quantum shielding technology in secret for decades, originally designed to protect against solar radiation for deep space missions. Our scientists believe we can modify it to create a field that amplifies our natural mental resistance." The ship's design was unlike anything in human military history. Instead of conventional weapons, it bristled with quantum field generators. Its hull was laced with neural reactive alloys that could channel and amplify human brainwave patterns. "The Void Collective will reach our system in 6 months," Rodriguez concluded. "They expect to find another helpless civilization ready for harvest. Instead, they're going to encounter humanity at its finest, united, prepared, and uniquely equipped to fight back." As the council chamber descended into intense discussion, Dr. Chen studied the ship's schematics. The Bastion represented humanity's greatest achievement, not just in technology, but in turning their perceived weaknesses into strengths. Their fractious nature, their stubborn individuality, their constant internal struggles. These were the very qualities that made them humanity's best hope against an enemy that consumed uniformity. The race against time had begun. In orbital shipyards above Earth, construction crews worked around the clock. In laboratories worldwide, scientists refined the quantum shielding technology. And in the vast expanse of space, the Void Collective approached, unaware that their next target would be anything but easy prey. Humanity had 6 months to prepare for a battle that would determine not just their fate, but the fate of consciousness itself in the galaxy. And for the first time since the warning arrived, they dared to hope. Project Firewall. The bastion took shape in Earth's orbit like a monument to human determination. Dr. Marcus Wong watched through the observation deck of Luna Base as another quantum shield array was carefully maneuvered into position by construction drones. 4 months had passed since the warning, and humanity's greatest weapon was ahead of schedule. The latest simulations just came in, Lieutenant Emma Hayes announced, floating into the observation room in the low lunar gravity. Her dark skin contrasted sharply with her white uniform, marked with the new United Earth Defense Force insignia. The quantum shields aren't just blocking psychic energy. They're reflecting it back. Marcus turned from the window. His interest peaked. At 53, he was the leading expert on human consciousness resistance, having studied the phenomenon long before they knew its true importance. "Show me," he said, moving to the holographic display station. The simulation played out in vivid detail. The Bastion's quantum shields didn't just create a barrier against the Void Collective's psychic attacks. They amplified and redirected the energy, turning the enemy's greatest weapon against itself. It was elegant in its simplicity, like holding up a mirror to a Medusa. "There's more," Emma continued, expanding the display. "Remember those anomalous brain patterns we detected in the engineering crews? We figured out what's causing them. The neural reactive hull isn't just channeling our natural resistance, it's creating a feedback loop that strengthens it. The longer our crews work with the technology, the more resistant they become." Marcus studied the data, his eyes widening. "It's like an immune system response. The more exposure, the stronger the defense." He paused, considering the implications. "Have you told Admiral Rodriguez yet? He's calling an emergency council session now." "But Marcus..." Emma hesitated, something unusual for the typically direct lieutenant. "Some of the crew are reporting abilities, enhanced intuition, predictive capabilities, even limited telepathy with each other. The quantum field isn't just protecting us, it's awakening something." Before Marcus could respond, the station's alert system activated. A holographic message appeared. "All Project Firewall personnel report to emergency session 217. The message was coded urgent but not critical, a new development rather than a crisis. In the council chamber aboard the lunar base, Admiral Rodriguez stood before the assembled project leaders. The room had changed since their first meetings. Now the walls were covered with real-time data feeds from the Bastion's construction and the approaching Void Collective. "What we've discovered changes everything," Rodriguez began, his voice carrying the weight of command, but also a hint of excitement. "The quantum shields aren't just defensive technology. They're catalysts for human potential. Every crew member working with them is developing enhanced cognitive abilities. We're not just building a weapon. We're evolving." The chamber erupted in discussion, but Dr. Elena Petrov, the project's head of psychology, cut through the noise. "We need to understand what this means for our strategy. The Void Collective expects to face a technologically advanced, but psychically primitive species. Instead, they'll encounter humans who can not only resist their influence, but potentially turn it against them." "There's more," Marcus added, stepping forward. "The latest data suggests these abilities aren't random mutations. They're expressions of capabilities we already possessed, but never needed to access. The quantum fields are like keys unlocking doors in our minds that evolution built but left closed." The implications were staggering. Humanity had spent its history believing it was alone in a universe of superior beings, only to discover that their perceived isolation had made them uniquely suited to face the greatest threat to consciousness itself. Construction of the Bastion accelerated as crews, but time was running short. The Void Collective had accelerated its approach, perhaps sensing that their next target wasn't as defenseless as they assumed. 2 months remained until first contact, and humanity was becoming something new with each passing day. In his private quarters, Marcus reviewed the latest crew reports. The enhanced abilities were spreading beyond the construction teams now, affecting everyone who spent significant time near the quantum fields. Some feared they were changing too fast, becoming something other than human. But as Marcus studied the data, he saw not a departure from humanity but its ultimate expression: adaptation, growth, and the courage to become more than they were. The Bastion wasn't just humanity's shield against extinction. It was becoming a crucible for their next evolutionary leap, forced by necessity, but guided by choice. As Marcus watched another quantum array slot into place, he wondered if the Void Collective had any concept of what they had awakened in their approach to Earth. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their natural resistance, but in their ability to transform crisis into opportunity, to forge advancement from adversity. The final countdown to contact had begun, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why you should never corner a species that thrives on overcoming impossible odds. The breaking point. First contact with the Void Collective came 3 weeks ahead of projections. They arrived not as ships in the conventional sense, but as tiers in space itself. Dark, writhing portals that leaked purple energy into the void. The Bastion's sensors detected them first, registering massive distortions at the edge of the solar system. Captain Sarah Martinez stood on the Bastion's bridge, her enhanced consciousness seamlessly connected to both her crew and the ship's systems. Through the neural link, she felt the readiness of her people, their trained minds forming a unified defense network while maintaining their crucial individual identities. "They're probing our system," Lieutenant Commander Jack Chen reported, his thoughts carrying across the bridge crew's shared awareness. Standard pattern. Testing for psychic resistance. Through their enhanced senses, they could feel the Void Collective's surprise as their initial mental attacks encountered nothing but silence. The enemy had expected to find a primitive species, ripe for absorption. Instead, they found humanity waiting, shielded and evolved. The Bastion hung in high Earth orbit, its quantum shields creating a protective bubble that encompassed the entire planet. "They're changing formation," Sarah observed, watching through both conventional sensors and her enhanced perception. "Preparing for direct confrontation. This is new behavior for them. They've never had to fight for a world before." The Void Collective's portals widened, disgorging what could only be described as living ships, organic vessels that pulsed with the same purple energy as their gateways. There were hundreds of them, each one an extension of the hive consciousness that had consumed so many civilizations. "All stations, battle positions," Sarah commanded. The Bastion's crew responded instantly, their trained minds linking together in combat formations they had practiced for months. The quantum shields hummed with power, creating layers of protection that were both physical and psychic. The first attack came not as weapons fire, but as a massive psychic assault meant to overwhelm and consume. The Void Collective threw their full mental force against Earth's defenders, expecting to find minds that would crumble before their power. Instead, they found something unprecedented. The Bastion's quantum shields didn't just block the attack. They caught it, amplified it, and threw it back. The feedback loop created by the neural reactive hull transformed the enemy's own power into a weapon against them. Several of the organic ships recoiled, their hive mind connections temporarily severed by the backlash. "Now," Sarah ordered, and the Bastion launched its counter-offensive. The ship's weapons were unlike anything humanity had built before. Quantum pulse cannons that fired concentrated bursts of the same energy that powered their shields. Each shot carried not just destructive force, but the focused will of the human crew, weaponized consciousness that tore through the Void Collective's psychic defenses. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries as humanity's defining moment. The Void Collective, faced with resistance for the first time in their history, tried strategy after strategy. They attempted to overwhelm with numbers, to find weak points in the quantum shields, to separate the crew's mental link. Each attempt failed as humanity demonstrated why adaptability was their greatest strength. Through their enhanced awareness, the Bastion's crew felt the first traces of something they never expected from the hive mind: fear. The Void Collective had never encountered a species that could not only resist them but turn their own power against them. They had never faced an enemy that grew stronger with each attack, learning and adapting in real time. "They're pulling back," Jack announced, monitoring the enemy's movements, regrouping at the system's edge. "But there's something else." He focused his enhanced senses on the retreating forces. "They're calling for reinforcements." This was just their advance force. Sarah processed this information through both her tactical training and her evolved intuition. They won't give up easily. This is the first time they've failed to consume a world on first contact. Their entire strategy relies on the fear of inevitable defeat. We've just proven they can be beaten. The crew felt her determination ripple through their shared awareness. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. The Void Collective would return with everything they had, desperate to maintain their aura of invincibility. But humanity had changed forever. The quantum shields had awakened abilities that had lain dormant for millennia, and each engagement only made them stronger. The Bastion wasn't just a warship, it was the key to humanity's next evolutionary step, forced into emergence by the very enemy that sought to destroy them. As the organic ships retreated through their dark portals, Sarah opened a channel to Earth Command. "First engagement successful," she reported. "But they'll be back, and in greater numbers. We need to prepare for a full-scale invasion." The response came back immediately. "Understood, Captain. All of humanity stands ready. We've proven they can bleed. Now let's show them why they should never have threatened Earth." The Bastion's crew returned to their stations, their minds linked but individual, their humanity not weakened but strengthened by their evolution. They had faced humanity's greatest threat and emerged victorious. The next battle would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of consciousness itself in the galaxy. Turning the tide. The message arrived from the Andromeda colony 3 days after the first battle. Other species were watching, and what they saw had given them hope. The Bastion's quantum communications array received transmissions from dozens of worlds, some already partially consumed by the Void Collective, others still fighting desperately to resist. Admiral Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Council, now expanded to include representatives from Mars and the outer colonies. "The Araxians were wrong about one thing," he began. "There are others still fighting. The Void Collective doesn't consume worlds instantly. It takes time, especially with larger populations. And where there's time, there's hope." Dr. Elena Petrov stepped forward, her holographic displays showing neural patterns from various species. "The quantum shield technology can be adapted to work with any biological consciousness. Different species will have varying levels of natural resistance, but the basic principles remain the same. We can help them fight back." The decision was unanimous. Earth would not simply defend itself. It would lead the resistance against the Void Collective. The Bastion specs were transmitted to every world that could still receive them, along with instructions for building quantum shields adapted to each species' neural patterns. Captain Martinez stood on the Bastion's bridge as they prepared for their most ambitious operation yet. The ship had been refitted with improved quantum arrays, its hull now capable of projecting protective fields around other vessels. A fleet of smaller ships from various Earth colonies had gathered around them, each equipped with scaled-down versions of the quantum shield technology. "The Void Collective is massing for another attack," Lieutenant Commander Chen reported, his enhanced senses detecting the familiar distortions at the system's edge. "But something's different this time. Their patterns are erratic." Sarah extended her perception, feeling what Jack had noticed. The hive mind's usual crystalline structure showed signs of fracturing. Their defeat had done more than force them to retreat. It had introduced doubt into a consciousness that had never known anything but absolute certainty. They're vulnerable, she realized. Not just physically, but psychically. They've never had to question themselves before. Every defeat damages not just their forces, but their very identity. The dark portals opened again, disgorging not hundreds but thousands of organic ships. The Void Collective had committed their main force, determined to crush the first serious resistance they'd encountered in centuries. But humanity was ready. The battle began not with weapons fire, but with a massive psychic pulse from the Bastion. The quantum shields gathered the concentrated will of the crew and broadcasted across space. Not an attack, but a message. For the first time, the Void Collective experienced something new: human empathy. They felt the individual minds within the hive mind, the remnants of consciousness that had been absorbed but never truly erased. The Bastion's crew reached out to these fragments, offering not destruction but liberation. The effect was devastating. Organic ships began to break formation as absorbed consciousnesses stirred, remembering their individuality. The hive mind's control wavered, its absolute dominion challenged by the very diversity it had tried to eliminate. And in that moment of chaos, humanity struck. The Bastion led the charge, its quantum weapons firing in perfect synchronization with its escort fleet. Each shot carried not just destructive energy, but the focused will to free rather than destroy. The organic ships that weren't destroyed began to change, their purple energy flickering and fading as the consciousnesses within fought for liberation. Multiple signatures breaking free, Jack announced, monitoring the battlefield through enhanced sensors. The hive mind's losing control. Individual minds are reasserting themselves. Sarah felt it through her enhanced perception. The awakening of countless minds, like stars igniting in darkness. The Void Collective's greatest strength had become its critical weakness. By absorbing so many consciousnesses, it had taken in the seeds of its own destruction. All they needed was the right catalyst to awaken. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Void Collective's rigid hierarchy couldn't adapt to an enemy that empowered individuality while maintaining unity. Their attempts to overwhelm through numbers failed as more and more absorbed consciousnesses broke free, turning their own ships against them. As the last organic ships retreated or surrendered, Sarah opened a channel to the liberated vessels. The responses came in countless languages, but all carried the same emotion: gratitude. Humanity had not just defeated an enemy. They had freed minds that had been imprisoned for centuries. The victory carried a price. Several Earth ships were lost in the battle, their crews sacrificing themselves to protect others. But their deaths served a greater purpose. The quantum shield technology had proven that consciousness itself was the ultimate weapon against the Void Collective, not in destruction, but in the preservation of individual identity within unity. As debris from the battle cooled in space, Sarah received a new transmission. The remaining free species had called an emergency council. Earth, so recently considered a primitive newcomer to galactic civilization, was being asked to lead the final offensive against the Void Collective's home systems. The war wasn't over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. Humanity had shown the galaxy a new way to fight, not through fear or dominance, but through the strength found in diversity and free will. The Bastion and its crew had become more than Earth's defenders. They were now the spearhead of a revolution that would reshape consciousness itself. Liberation. The Void Collective's home system defied conventional physics. Massive purple-black structures floated in space, each one a nerve center connecting millions of absorbed consciousnesses. At the system's heart, a massive quantum singularity pulsed with dark energy, the physical manifestation of the hive mind's core consciousness. The combined fleet of free species gathered at the system's edge, led by the Bastion. Captain Sarah Martinez studied the sensor readings with both her enhanced senses and traditional instruments. After 6 months of liberation campaigns across the galaxy, They had finally traced the hive mind to its source. Quantum scans confirm what the liberated minds told us, Lieutenant Commander Chen reported. The singularity isn't natural. It's artificial consciousness technology, ancient beyond anything we've encountered. The Void Collective didn't evolve. It was created. Dr. Elena Petrov's voice came through the quantum link from her research station on Earth. The data suggests it was an experiment in collective consciousness that went wrong. Instead of enabling harmony between species, it developed an insatiable hunger to absorb and control. The fleet represented every species that had fought back against the Void Collective. Ships of diverse designs and technologies, all now equipped with variations of the quantum shield technology. Their crews had learned to balance individual identity with collective action, creating a force that was both unified and diverse. All ships, battle formation, Sarah commanded. The fleet moved with practiced precision, arranging itself in layers around the bastion. The quantum shields activated in sequence, creating an overlapping network of protective fields. But their true strength wasn't in their technology. It was in the minds of their crews, each one contributing their unique perspective to the whole. The Void Collective's response was immediate and massive. The space around them writhed as thousands of organic ships emerged from subspace. But something was different about them now. The purple energy that powered them flickered erratically, showing signs of the internal struggle that had been growing since their first defeat. They're afraid, Jack observed through the neural link. Not just of losing. They're afraid of what we represent. Every liberated mind proves that their way isn't the only path to unity. The battle began not with weapons, but with a coordinated psychic broadcast from the entire fleet. Every ship projected the same message, not of destruction, but of choice. The quantum shields amplified their combined will, reaching into the hive mind's network with an offer of freedom. The effect was catastrophic for the Void Collective. Absorbed consciousnesses that had been suppressed for centuries awakened, their individuality strengthened by the example of the Free Fleet. Organic ships began to turn on each other as their crews fought for liberation. Sarah directed the bastion toward the central singularity, leading a strike force of the most powerful ships in the fleet. The hive mind's core responded with desperate fury, launching waves of psychic energy that would have consumed lesser minds. But humanity's evolved consciousness, combined with the quantum shields, turned each attack back upon itself. The singularity's fluctuating, Jack reported. The hive mind is losing control of its own technology. If it collapses, he didn't need to finish the thought. The death of the core consciousness could destroy everything in the system. Sarah made her decision. Through the neural link, she connected not just with her crew but with the entire fleet. All ships, concentrate fire on these coordinates. She transmitted targeting data for specific points around the singularity. We're not here to destroy. We're here to free. The combined fleet fired as one, their weapons guided by unified purpose but individual choice. The quantum-enhanced beams struck the singularity's containment structure in precise locations, creating a resonance pattern that matched the frequency of free consciousness. The effect was beyond anything they had predicted. The singularity's purple-black energy began to shift, colors spreading through it like dawn breaking through darkness. The ancient technology responded to something it had never encountered before, the power of minds choosing to work together while remaining unique. Multiple consciousness signatures detected, Jack announced, his voice filled with awe. They're separating. The hive mind is breaking apart, but the individuals are surviving. The liberation cascaded through the Void Collective's entire network. Organic ships transformed as their crews rediscovered their original identities. The massive structures that had housed the absorbed consciousnesses began to reconfigure, becoming stations that could support diverse life rather than prison worlds that consumed it. As the singularity stabilized into a new form of collective consciousness, one based on choice rather than control, Sarah received messages from across the fleet. Species that had been absorbed centuries ago were awakening, their memories and identities intact. The Void Collective hadn't destroyed them. It had only suppressed them. and now they were free. The victory was complete, but it wasn't the kind of victory humanity had originally imagined. They had defeated the Void Collective not through superior firepower or technology, but by offering a better way to achieve unity, one that celebrated diversity rather than consuming it. In the years that followed, the liberated species would help reshape galactic civilization. The quantum shield technology evolved into a network that allowed communication and cooperation while preserving individual identity. The Bastion became not just a symbol of resistance, but a reminder that the strongest bonds are those chosen freely. Humanity had proven that their greatest strength wasn't their ability to fight, but their capacity to show others a different path. They had taken their first steps into a larger galaxy, not as conquerors or victims, but as liberators who understood that true strength comes from embracing diversity rather than fearing it. The age of the Void Collective was over. The age of chosen unity had begun.